And we welcome back, for the fourth of his 5 consecutive nights here on the agenda, Kwame McKenzie, Medical Director of Diversity and Mental Health at Kwame and a Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Toronto. We're talking about your home and native land tonight, sir. The UK. Here's British multiculturalism according to the CIA fact book. This is what the numbers say. Michael, if you would. The white population of the United Kingdom, more than 92%. Blacks make up 2%, Indians almost 2%, Pakistanis at 1.3%, so-called mixed at 1.2%, and everybody else at 1.6%. Why don't we start with this? What's your explanation for how Britain got to this particular ethnic composition?
Well, most of the people who have come to Britain have been invited to come in labour shortages after the war in the 50s and the 60s. So these are people from the colonies. So the vast majority of immigration is from the colonies, with a small number of people coming from parts of Africa due to war. And so we've got some refugees, but mainly that's what it's due to. Just recently things have been changing though, because the European Union have changed the rules so that the doors are open. Anybody from Europe can come and work in the UK. And so in the last, say for instance, 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years now, there've been up to between 250,000 and 500,000 Europeans, people from Poland, people from Romania, and people from Hungary who come to the UK. Romania just recently,
The famous Polish plumbers campaign.
The famous Polish plumbers campaign, even to the point where some English plumbers were pretending to be Polish because the stereotype was, and this just shows how stereotypes can be positive or negative. The stereotype was that Polish plumbers were cheaper, which they were not, and were better, which the jury's out on. The British plumbers were saying they were Polish.
Now, when you say from the colonies, do you mean the Commonwealth?
Oh, old colonies.
Old colonies.
The old colonies. So the Indian subcontinent from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or from the Caribbean colonies. They became independent afterwards, but yes, from the Commonwealth, I guess.
Okay. Now, in this country, obviously, most immigrants live in the major cities of the country. Is it that way in the UK as well?
Yes. The vast majority of immigrants, 85%, are living in big cities. They're living in London, they're living in Birmingham, they're living in Bristol, they're living in Liverpool and Manchester. But London is the biggest population. And
do they live in what you might call, I guess, for lack of a better expression, ethnic enclaves?
Not so much. Yes and no. In that, one of the differences between that I find and everybody finds when they come to Canada is Canada's vast. England is small. It's a very small place, and because of that, the population is 50 million in a much smaller area than Canada, and so the population density is quite high. People are next to each other. So even in London, when people talk about an ethnic enclave, that can be 3 or 4 streets from a completely different area.
2% of marriages, we're told, in England and Wales are so-called inter-ethnic, whereas in Canada the figure that also includes common law marriages is around 4%, twice as much proportionately, we're told. Does that say anything to you about how well different cultures mix in the UK versus over here?
No, it seems to say that it's very similar. So 92% of the population in the UK is white, and about 80% of the population of Canada is non-immigrant. And that doesn't mean white. White doesn't mean non. They don't equate. But just say, for instance, just for argument's sake, there are twice as many immigrants in Canada as there are in the UK. There's twice as much intermarriage in the UK as there in Canada as there is in the UK. Seems about the same statistically.
Seems all proportionate to you.
Yeah.
Does it still raise eyebrows, for example? It depends where you are in this country, but I suspect in the big cities of this country, if you saw a black husband and a white wife, for example, walk down the street together, I mean, I know in downtown Toronto nobody'd take notice, but in the UK, would that kind of thing still raise an eyebrow or two?
Not usually, but it would depend where you are. Because it's very similar to Canada, some concentrated cities where there's a lot of diversity. But if you go down to sort of some of the rural parts of the UK, You don't see very much in the way of cultural diversity. You don't see very many different black or brown faces. So there people might be more inquiring than in the city. But generally, I don't think that many people care that much about that, because on TV you see it all the time now.
In what, situation comedies or that kind of thing, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first interracial kiss on TV was in Star Trek.
It was indeed.
It was in Star Trek. But, you know, it's not a sort of something that is taboo, and it's not something that is quite so irregular now in the UK.
And we should clarify for the younger viewers,
what Star Trek is.
When we say Star Trek, we don't mean the Jean-Luc Picard Next Generation. We mean the original classic. It was William Shatner and Nichelle Nichols.
Don't try and draw me into this sort of next generation, non-next generation
I'm moving
argument, because move on.
Okay, moving right along. Here's another thing. This is from a publication called Secure Borders, Safe Haven, Integration and Diversity in Modern Britain. It's from the Home Office. And here's what they say. To enable integration to take place and to value the diversity it brings, we, meaning the UK, need to be secure within our sense of belonging and identity, and therefore to be able to reach out and to embrace those who come to the UK. Having a clear, workable, and robust nationality and asylum system is the prerequisite to building the security and trust that is needed. Without it, we cannot defeat those who would seek to stir up hate, intolerance, and prejudice. Okay, this is, I guess, some sense about what the UK considers to be its model of multiculturalism. Would you say that it's closer to Canada's mosaic or America's melting pot?
It's probably closer to the melting pot. So this is from people who are more on the right wing of public opinion in the UK. And their idea is, well, we've got to have a plan. Now, you know from everything I always say is having a plan is good, because then you can discuss what the plan should be. They've got a plan. They say if people are coming, we need to know what they're coming for, and we need to decide what we're going to do with them. Now, remember that there isn't very much immigration into the UK anymore, and most of the new immigrants are either from the European Union or they're refugees and asylum seekers. You know, primary immigration from the Caribbean and from sort of India and Pakistan is very rare.
Slowed down.
Slowed down. So there isn't that much immigration. So what they're saying is, we want a plan. If people are coming, they have to be coming for something. They've got to have a plan of what we're going to do with them. And that's good, because you know when you're coming what's possible, and you know, you can plan for it. But they also say that we need to have a robust national identity, and the Americans do that. And it's very clear. It's surprising. When I was in the States, spent some time in the States, going to American schools and hearing them sort of the national anthem, and they have a flag outside. I mean, we don't play the national anthem in UK schools, and there's no flag outside.
Is that right? That's just not done.
It's not done. But then
that's done here.
I know. But it's
not just in the States. They do that here. They don't do that there.
No, and it's an interesting thing. I had always thought it was something about nation building. So, you know, Canada is a relatively new country and is thinking about nation building, and is taking in immigrants to help build the nation, and therefore is spending time thinking about who Canada is, what the identity of Canada is, and building some sort of cohesion. The UK is bringing people in, you know, from the colonies, who have actually spent a lot of time learning about what it is to be British, because the British system of even exams, the exams you take at school, permeates the school system in all the colonies. So these are people who know what it is to be British.
My hunch is the vast majority of Canadians, if you ask them, approve of the country's multiculturalism idea. They think it makes us a better, more interesting place to live. And I wonder, you know, we saw the numbers earlier, 92+% of Brits are white. What does that average white Brit, or, you know, citizen of the United Kingdom, think about his country's or her country's diversity?
Depends what you're asking them. So the most common meal, if people are going out for a meal in the UK, the most common meal that people will go out to buy is a chicken tikka masala. Now, some people think of, you know, roast beef and Yorkshire pudding or fish and chips as a national dish.
Yes.
The national dish in the UK is a chicken tikka masala.
When did that happen?
That happened in the 90s. I mean, chicken tikka masala was invented in the UK. And that is, you know, I mean, when I say it's a national dish, I mean by de facto it is, because it's the thing that people go out.
So by that,
right.
you know, as far as that goes, people are all signed up for multiculturalism.
As far as the soccer team, people are all,
Right.
you know, happy about multiculturalism. As far as the arts, people are happy with multiculturalism.
I hear a but coming. Where does the line get drawn?
But not everybody's happy. And not everybody's happy because, as always happens when there are problems, as there are in the UK, at the moment economically, people look at people who they think of as, you know, the other people, or the last in should be the first out, and they're the people who they think are taking their jobs. 500,000 people in the UK at the recent election voted for the British National Party, the sort of far right-wing party that once, at one time, wanted to repatriate immigrants, people from ethnocultural groups.
Repatriate basically means ethnically cleanse, right? Is that a nice way to put it?
Yeah.
Kick them out.
Kick them out nicely.
Yeah. Nicely.
Ask them to leave nicely. Yes, because it has to stay within the law. Otherwise, they can't be a bona fide political party. 500,000 people voted for
They
them.
got no seats, though.
No, and this is one of the interesting things with the idea of changing it to a proportional representation model.
Because they might get seats under that system.
Yes, because there are parties that are actually smaller than them, such as the Scottish National Party and Plaid Cymru, which is a Welsh national party, who poll smaller numbers and get seats.
Well, as long as we're on the issue of the Parliament over there, let's talk about the election that had just transpired. And I want to put a picture up to get this part of our discussion started. The election, of course, has got David Cameron as the new Conservative Prime Minister, supported by Nick Clegg and the Liberal Democrats. And here's the photo of the new cabinet. And the cabinet, I guess most of it, 3/4 of it at least, looks pretty much like every other cabinet in British history. But in the front, it is pretty hard to miss Saida Warsi, who was the first Muslim woman to sit in a British cabinet. 27 people also elected as MPs from African, Asian, or Caribbean descent. That's almost double the previous number. Those numbers don't stack up too well compared to us, but for Britain, I gather it's a big development. What does that say to you?
Well, that says a number of things. I mean, I think when I looked at the picture to start off with, that picture was very, 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 very white and male. It looked like the same old people doing the same old thing, with the addition of a few women who were nicely put at the front of the picture so that you couldn't miss them. And you know, she, I think, is. I think isn't she the daughter of a? She's the daughter of an immigrant. She's second generation. So she's the daughter of a man from Pakistan who came with nothing and made his way up as a textile manufacturer, and then sent her to one of the best public schools in the country.
And now she's in the cabinet.
Good for her. The question is it good for anybody else?
What's the answer?
I don't know. Let's see what she does with it.
So if she flames out, it won't be great.
No. And if she does well, that's good. I mean, I was all for the idea of women coming into Parliament, and it's great. But then, you know, in the UK we had Margaret Thatcher, and she was a disaster. It
depends who you talk to on that.
Sorry?
It depends who you talk to. Not everybody obviously thought she was a disaster. She won a lot.
That's true. Not everybody does. That's true. But you know, that's my opinion. And that's my opinion.
But is it? I mean, obviously, the symbolism of having that woman of color in the cabinet, you know, says something. What do you think it says anything more than tokenism?
I don't think it is tokenism. Okay. I think she's there on her merits because they were trying to get in more women, and they were trying to get in clever women, and she is a clever woman, and that's good. And she's a clever woman who happens to be a Muslim, and that's great. And she's not the first black or South Asian politician who's been in the cabinet. There's Keith Vaz and other people who've been in the cabinet beforehand, and it shows some progression. But if you look at the cabinet is in no way reflective of the population. And
nor is the Parliament.
Nor is the Parliament.
So you can only make up a cabinet from what you get in
Exactly.
Parliament.
And things are moving forward slowly in the way that how can I put it? a country steeped in history does move forward slowly, turning around the Titanic. It's moving in the right direction, we hope.
I love the way you said a country steeped in history. You kind of spit that out. I'm not sure you think that's necessarily a fabulous thing, but we'll continue that conversation.
I didn't think it was a bad thing. I was trying to use the term to explain that sometimes history is something that you build on and move forward, and sometimes history is something that anchors you to the port when you're trying to move forward.
Believe me, that came through loud and clear. I got it.
Okay.
Okay, Kwame, we'll do it one more time tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thanks very much.